tonight. I slept through the natural light, but I'll do it if it feels alright. Alright, alright. Ah! And you, just like the moon, are never coming down.
Brie. I'm opening a brie for you. I'll set it where its shoulders, creamy, firm, will slump into the warmth of afternoon, and where what breeze there is today will carry news of brie out to the highway, where you may be driving. Yo-Yo Ma is at full volume now, in case you're walking by, and I've opened the Neruda to the verse that seemed to summon you the time before, and read aloud its final stanza twice. Read aloud his final stanza twice. And I have trimmed the ivy, cut the spent camellia blossoms, swept the brown ones from beneath the pots that cluster near the door, where surely you will knock and bring a poem like you did before. Barley, corn. That was the summer we danced naked rings around the silo they never used. Our beads, our smoke, our rented farmhouse and island, corn waves tickling our shoreline, danced naked while the growers of corn flew low and dusted. That spring, Ralph Palmer and his son had harrowed up, furrowed down, put 100 acres into barley. It was early, and winter, not knowing its place, returned for 4 days, plunged the red line to 30, to 29, to 31. Barley dies at 28, and on the 3rd day Ralph's heart stumbled and fell. His dog barked all night. That was the summer we ran naked between the corn rows, ate his fingerling ears, thought, it's feed corn, not table corn, thought, the cows won't know if they're a dozen ears short. That's what we thought. Ralph lived on, and so did his barley. That was the summer we danced naked on the lawn, and I wondered when Ralph Palmer had last danced naked on the lawn, before corn drew his life into neat furrows, into terrible furrows, when or if. Wondered if corn came to him in his cradle, if barley tapped him on the shoulder at high school graduation and said, "Come with me, boy." That sometimes happens.
Talking salamanders. I'm reading out of my book here, so. This poem was inspired by a newspaper article that showed that within the Mormon archives, an angel who appeared to Joseph Smith was really a salamander, but that was proved to be a hoax by church authorities, unfortunately, because I thought it was really cool. I love the idea of being informed by a talking salamander. But this poem really doesn't have anything to do with the Mormon teachings or anything. It's just about salamanders. If my toenails bore the chipped remains of frosty orange, pink, or red, I could almost see the thin, milky line that silhouettes the skin of the Disney heroine, like electricity, begin to trace my toes and fingers with that glow. But was it only on their skin, setting them apart, denoting a magical race, self-luminous, radiant, put here to be our gods? Or did they simply inhabit an atavistic realm, latter-day animists, talking to salamanders, the holy grace shining out of everything? This one is Weekend at God's. There we were as the sun came up, standing around on the lawn in dress shoes. We'd partied all night. Passing the kitchen, I heard God's wife complain as she tried to wrestle something out of the freezer. We've barbecued almost everything in creation. I looked around me. God's place out in the country was, well, palatial. and I was struck with the feeling I'd been here before. There, out in back, beyond those olive trees, someone used to live there. Someone I had to see. No one noticed me slip away behind the trees, where I spotted the little shack just as it was before. I passed some dark-skinned men working on the grounds. They said, "Yes, it's her. Oh, she's still there, most definitely." Her hut was flimsy and smaller than I remembered. God's mother isn't at all like what we think. She's incredibly fat, for one thing. I looked in, stringy black hair hung round her neck, long pendulous breasts reached toward the ground. She was enormous. She didn't apologize like last time. Last time we had to peel the caked earth off of her. She's busy. She runs a little business out of her hut called Books from the Center of the Earth. The sky was dark with clouds. I had to get back. She gave me a book. She said, "Keep it." Heading back to the party, I opened it. Thunder rolled, drops of water hit the page, mud oozed up from the binding, and as I reached the lawn, everyone was standing heels deep in it, looking dazed, soggy paper cups and cigarettes still in their hands.
Wishing for now. Stop looking for what you can't find. Start finding what you already have. All of our longings come winging toward us the moment we call them, but we quickly forget what we wished for yesterday and wish something different today. But look, our wishes flock to us like birds to a feeder, squawking and crapping all over the place. Yes, yet we in our endless need just look the other way. How much of our desire is necessity? How much is greed? Start living your wishes today. The clothes on your back, the shoes on your feet, your job, your friends, the food you eat, your spouse, your kids, your house, your car are living wishes. They're what you are. Creative mind explodes from us with every breath, spinning these illusions between our birth and death. There may be tomorrow, or possibly not. It's hard to predict about anyone's lot, so taste your melons, sip your wine. We live upon an earth divine. My beloved's beauty. My beloved's beauty shines with inner light, nor can night eclipse her sweet ellipse of smile. I cherish her being within, not the parts that will perish. We meet, we merge, we fall away, and find that what was going comes. Our lives entwine like gathered braids, while time unwinds our tangled days. My beloved's touch is deep. It keeps us dreaming while we sleep, that in our lover we're awake. I see my sun in her moon in me.
Open Ghazal. Kiss the hand and cheek, kiss the lips that open, kiss the eyes and tears, kiss the wounds that open. The nuclei of our atoms are so small, we're mostly nothing. Whoever made them made our stone walls out of windows always open. A bag too dark to see, too big to lift, too familiar to walk away from, deep in a thicket. God, grant me strength to drag it into the open. 610, stuck on the freeway again. Love is singing with window and throat wide open. My friend who refused to greet the stranger in black was brought to the surgeon who cut his heart open. Go ahead, I dare you, take another breath. Each one is full of what 14 billion years ago blew this world open. We safecracker poets, sand fingertips, pass long nights on our knees, all to feel those clicks that mean the door will spring open. Len says, I love the night sky. I adore the Milky Way. It is the edge of her robe. See how gently it opens. I might have inherited some of my father's Norwegian blood. Kinship with silence. The meadow and the round hills have waited all night for this. The dew falls, the dew rises. I have been apprenticed with Norwegian masters. If you can't say it with silence, it isn't worth saying. Once, I just had to tell the truth. Now, I'm grateful for even a word. I mold these sounds with delicate care, all to record my own bursting. I can't go to the big church anymore. I got caught using the wrong metaphor. Sometimes, all alone, I listen to the stillness rolling in dark waves. Dying can be a lot like being born. We don't know the name of the one we cry out to.
This is an unfinished dithyramb debating the value of beauty. The dithyramb was an ancient Greek hymn sung and danced in honor of Dionysus, the god of wine and fertility. The term was also used as an epithet of the god Plato in the Laws. While discussing various kinds of music, it mentions the birth of Dionysus, called the dithyramb. Plato also remarks in the Republic that dithyrambs are the clearest example of poetry in which the poet is the only speaker. Forward to the 20th century. Imagine the early 1960s. Munich. The rebuilt Bavarian States Opera. I performed in a ballet called the Dithyramb. Music by and conducted by Aaron Copland. The choreography was based on Schiller's poem Auch das Schöne muss sterben. Even the beautiful must perish. I cannot remember my steps, but the words would haunt me forever. Auch das Schöne muss sterben. Beauty, seemingly only reserved for the gods, seemingly denied to the everyone else. So I found ugliness in the dictionary as beauty's equal counter. And I found that beauty is mocking ugliness as if perceived worthless with little value. We all admire, but what is beauty? We are unable to argue successfully. Nor do we know where beauty really comes from. Schiller was to lament, auch das Schöne muss sterben. But isn't it that a flower needs dirt to be born, to exist? Only to turn into dirt at the end of life? So ugly, or the seemingly discarded, is the basis for recognizing what we all call beauty. If there is no ugliness, there would be no beauty. If there is no life, there would be no grave. There would be no human condition. There would be nothing what beauty could brave. Beauty in the 21st century. Seemingly only reserved for the gods, seemingly denied to the everyone else, yet wisdom reminds that contradiction and the paradox continues to be the beauty of all life. Auch das Schöne muss sterben. Even the beautiful must perish. The dawn gives birth when the stars begin to hide. The dusk takes sight when the sun loses the last blink of light. In between, we pretend to be alive, whoever we are, wherever we are, whatever we are. As long as fingers counting ticking time, in between, we prepare to die. In the morn, we fall in love with beauty by design. At noon, we feed the future and count what worries play. Call it divine. But later, much later that day, we find out what a last kiss can really say. Good night, my beauty. Good night. Let sweet dreams wake the little it means. Wake your past, wake new worlds, arouse your dormant thoughts as beauty, after all, resides in the depths of the despicable. Only Agneless can bear. Deep and fertile trash, where we think into hopeless despair. And then, in such obnoxious foundation beyond embrace, where the gods and the goddesses weep and their imperfect tears collide with hope. And in such freak moment, a birth of the sublime we call sensation, sparks a burst of eternal light. Oh, what a sight! We see it all. Inner beauty is variety. Now we can see what we can see and what we want to see, at least for now. Let the gods twitter a sigh, as the gods are never too shy. Anyway, who would ask them? There always is why. Let the violin jubilate, kiss me, baby, kiss me. Kiss my vanity, at least accept my insanity. Auch das Schöne muss sterben. Even the beautiful must perish. As common ego sinks into fate, whilst beauty, somehow never the same, don't quote the man-made gods, but breathe the earthly spirits. Pray a humbling thank you, as beauty always will remain.
The day after my mother is buried, I awake to the sight of 6 adolescent male deer, their antlers beginning to bud out. Stalwart brothers in undulating procession heading toward my yard. They move peacefully, silent as pallbearers, as if rehearsed, sidestepping each other. They look to the garden fence they could easily vault over, provocation of swollen tomatoes and sweet peas on the vine. But they move on toward the meadow and the brambles as the day stretches out her arms, thin and fragile through fog. I'd follow them too if I knew I could leave my grief in that open field, along with half-eaten blackberries, delicate and bruised, juice still dripping from our open mouths. Conflagration. On Saturday mornings, my father burned our garbage at the edge of our 40-acre farm, down by the graveyard of old bottles of Coca-Cola and Mountain Dew. I liked to watch him work, the deliberate strike of the match, and then the sharp flame leapt up, like our German shepherd nipping at the postman's heels. I liked how the heat curled the labels inward so that I could see the words Miller's, Budweiser, and Chef Boyardee shrivel finally. The blaze turning crimson to indigo, then yellow again, and the week's newspapers reduced to ash almost instantly. He seldom spoke but for an occasional stand back. Dumbstruck, I listened, never asked a single question. I understood the chore was solemn, unbearable, fighting back the wooded brush, cutting a deep circle out of the earth to keep us safe, contain the conflagration. Sometimes the wind would kick up, then smoke would snarl acrid in our faces, the smell like burning rubber, burnt remnants like whirling dervishes before us. When it got too hot to stand it any longer, I'd back away, half watching, still curious. My father, Prometheus with a long-handled shovel, sweaty and serious, staying with it until the last spark diminished. He'd be out there sometime until mid-afternoon, long after I'd gone inside my room. This was slow business, his thirst for absolution, his labor to make us clean and whole by Sunday morning.
Silence is a weapon. Violence can hurt someone once, but silence makes up a lineup of future victims. Violence will scrape off the skin, but silence will pick off the scab and pick you within. Indifference's hinges are suffering, open with no one to notice, so no one can close it, and traumatized people never felt safe again. A missile can hit a target one time, but survivors give birth to their children, while silence coats the coated in silence in depleted uranium. Violence can steal your dignity, but silence will resign you to misery. Silence will deny you recovery. Violence can shanghai you to slavery. But silence is why there are more slaves here today than any point in human history. Silence is a weapon. It strikes like an affection and grows so slow that you don't notice your toes go. You say, take my feet. I'll never drop to my knees. After those leave, you beg to keep your pelvis. You don't deserve this. You're entitled to restraining. It must say so in the Constitution. But our rights are just privileges. So as long that we're silent, while those born equal to us have theirs violated. And the Constitution has been toilet paper for as long as the people who use it have been sitting in jail. And our silence keeps them there. Our silence sinks more ships than loop slips, and we watch them never to leave to come back here. Cross the sea, spill some blood, save our freedom by leaving the other people disempowered. Our silence leaves every victim of violence without an answer. And still we can't find our voices, no matter how clear it becomes that our silence brought down the Twin Towers. Silence is a hammer. It slams us in a place holding together an engine, designed to spread fear and corruption by dividing us and them, thrusting us into a spiraling race to the bottom. But I choose not to let it happen. I refuse to be divided. I choose a third option. Silence is a weapon, but mine will be broken. We're the writers. We're the poets. We're the inspiration to go to perform at every single venue and coffee shop and have our voices be heard. We're the ones that perform on late night bases and get home at 5 o'clock in the morning because we love our passion. We're the ones that use our voices as powerful tools when government builds prisons and control us every day as the children have no decision of the way they live. We use our voices in a time of change, in a time of protest, in a time of asking questions why our government would cut our art programs and build prisons every year, but I don't know what Uncle Sam is doing, but you need to leave here. These kids need positive role models because they grow up in inner city communities where they can't afford to even live. Gentrifying our voices are the reason why they speak. Why the reason why they go out and march, why the reason why we make music, why the reason why we perform poetry and give it expression with spoken word. Our voices, our inspiration has the inner power.
Making love after long absence. In a room perched on top of stairs so narrow, my shoulders could not pass through two abreast, we found ourselves together again. I had forgotten how light the body is, how it surrounds us like a cloud in which the self can drift at its ease. Far, far away were my diaphanous feet, and half as far my hands, and just where I ended, you began. 1,000 miles off, yet close as breath the moment lungs finish their brief rest and begin to grow again. Augustine says, body is the world's messenger to soul, and soul gives shape again to what she hears in her own kingdom. So now, at the end of a day, I've been all talk, turning inward at last. I can see you there, swaying your breasts in a gray-blue, lingering northern light. So this is the bag lady, my main muse. A raggedy woman scurries before the oncoming garbage truck, picking out what can be redeemed from what I have thrown away. When I find her at the flea market, she has what I most want. If I importune, if I am outrageous, wave my hands about and dance, she'll bargain, and maybe I'll get something back, smelling of garlic and roses. 8 minutes ago. The universe keeps making everything larger. Light has to hustle to keep up. The stars we see are younger than they are. Even the sun is 8 minutes ago. No matter how bright the noon, night has carried yesterday far beyond the outermost planet. Yet, from 1,000,000 years ago, light reaches out to us always from that far galaxy, childhood. So this is a little bit about my childhood, this wonder. Christmas morning, I wake early to a strange noise from below, and in my footed pajamas, holding onto the railing, I creep down the shadowy stairs leading from the chauffeur's flat to the workroom below. Of all things, there's my father bending over an electric train, whizzing round and round an oval track nailed to a piece of plywood. He doesn't see me, but I watch him, caught as he is in the mystery of train lights, ruby and white, circling in the half-darkness. For a while I don't make a sound, but watch him, wondering about his strange smile. All these years later, I tiptoe down the stairs again, now understanding the poverty of his childhood and the jobless years of the Depression, and I watch him and imagine him thinking, I am able to give my children for Christmas this wonder.